Hi, it's Sherri from A Quilting Life, and I'm here today to talk about all things tumblers. I absolutely love tumbler quilts and tumbler blocks, and I started thinking the other day as I started a new tumbler project that I really hadn't talked about them very much lately, although it's something that I really love. And so I thought today I'd show you a bunch of different options and different ways that you can get your tumblers cut out, and some different project ideas that you can use to kind of get your creativity going and think about your own tumbler project that you might want to make. Okay, so I'm going to start out by showing you just a few little projects that I've done with tumblers, and then I'm going to show you all of the different ways that you can use to make this type of quilt, block, or project. So the first one is my Aubrey tote that I made with our Creekside collection, and it's a really great project because you cut the tumblers. You can use a charm pack. I think you might need 2 charm packs to cut the tumblers out, and then you just need a little bit of extra fabric, and I use Soft and Stable for this bag. It's a really great tote bag. So another project I have is this pin cushion. I still need to stuff it, that I made with my Summer Sweet collection, and it is actually from the pincushion book by Carrie Nelson. She has a little pattern in there for this, and I'll show you the template that I used for both of these in just a minute. This was a fun little project I made on a retreat. I was actually in Wisconsin when I made this, and Lisa Bonging in her Primitive Gathering shop had these pre-cut little tumblers, and so a few of us at the retreat bought several packages of them in darks and lights, and we just kind of alternated and switched our tumblers. You know, you have them with the narrow end on the top, and then the one next to it will have the narrow end on the bottom. So we just flipped them, sewed these together, and I think 2 or 3 of us made cute little wall hangings like this while we were at the retreat. And then I just went home, I put a border on it, a binding, had it quilted in this fun orange peel design, and this is how I hang it. I have just the little pockets. I have a video on this actually showing you how I put the little squares in before I do the binding, and just use a dowel, and then I can rest this dowel on a nail. So this is a table runner that I did, and I used the same size template that I used for the Aubrey tote. So this was actually a project in either A Quilting Life or in Fresh Family Traditions. So just a fun table runner. And this is actually the project that I'm getting ready to make now, except I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger. So now that I've shown you a few projects, oh, I also have a quilt, a tumbler quilt with large tumblers. I gave it to my daughter, but I do have a pattern for it that has a template in it, or I'll also tell you another way you can make that. But let me show you some of your options now for creating these fun tumbler blocks. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to show you the templates and the methods that I use to make each of these little projects. So as I mentioned, this little mini tumbler wall hanging, those were pre-cut tumblers, and so you might be able to find those at your quilt shop. I'm not sure if you can order them online from Primitive Gatherings still, but I know she carried them for several years. My little pin cushion that isn't stuffed yet, I used the Miss Rosie's Quilt Company. It's called the Crumbler, and then this is the mini crumbler. So the crumbler is a larger tumbler template, and it has different sizes. The larger this one anywhere from 3 inches all the way up to 5.5 inches. And what you do is you cut your fabric the same size as the height of the tumbler you're going to cut, and then you only have to cut, you know, the 2 sides. And this is a really helpful tool. I use the mini version to make the little tiny tumblers for the soon-to-be pincushion, we'll call it that. So that's one option. I really like these. I didn't show you this earlier in the intro, but I also made a little needle book on another retreat one day. And for this one, I used Betsy Chuchin's Betsy's Thimble Mini Charm tumbler template. And so this works really well with a mini charm pack. And this was the shape that I used for this. Betsy also has a charm pack size template that I haven't used yet, but I really, when I got it out for this video, I really thought I should use that. Lori Holt also has a thimble ruler, and I believe this is the 5-inch ruler that's sized for charm packs, but I believe she also has a 10-inch square thimble ruler. So you have kind of those options. These are nice because they are acrylic and you can just put your rotary cutter right up next to them when you cut. Now, for my Aubrey tote, I do have a template in the pattern, so you can trace it onto freezer paper or onto template plastic to make your templates if you'd like. Or you can also, it's just slightly different size but very close. You can cut a lot of tumblers quickly by using the Go Cutter. So if you're not familiar with the Go Cutter, it's a cutting system and it's a fabric die. You lay your fabric over the top. It might be hard to see, but there are 3 indentions here, so you can actually cut 3 different tumbler templates at the time you place the plastic over your fabric and wheel it through the machine. There's also an electric version, but then you can cut out lots of different tumbler templates at once. And this is what I'm going to be doing now. I'm going to be making a table runner a little bit bigger than this one, and so I've got my tumblers ready to go, and I'll show you in a minute how you go about laying those out. And then if you have the Go Cutter, there's also a large tumbler template, and this is just cuts 1, but you can stack at least 4 layers of fabric here, sometimes up to 6, but I believe this is pretty much charm pack sized, no, layer cake. Yeah, this works perfectly with layer cake squares. And just for size comparison, this is one of the large Go tumblers, and this is one of the small one. Now, one other feature with the Go Cutter tumbler templates is that they have the edges are cut off so that it makes it easier to align your pieces when you're sewing them together. None of these rulers have that option. That being said, it has never ever bothered me to use the rulers. I love the little Miss Rosie's mini. And so next I'm going to show you, I'll kind of clear off the table except for these, and I'll just kind of show you how you lay them out, and I'll sew a couple together so you can see how you line them up. Okay, so I'm going to do rows for my table runner that are 6 tumblers wide, and I think I'm actually going to make 12 rows total. I'll kind of see how it sizes when I get it closer to being done, and kind of test it out on the table that I want to use it on. So, but I'm going to show you how easy it is to sew these together. So I've got my first 2 rows just kind of laid out how I want them. And what you do is you put them right sides together, and you can see how those kind of cut off edges just line up on both ends. And you're going to just sew a 1/4 inch seam, and you just keep adding and pressing each row all of the seams to one side. So I'm going to head over to the sewing machine. I'm just going to sew 1/4 inch, press, and I'll actually finish these 2 rows, and then I'll show you how you line them up to sew the rows together. Okay, I'm back from the sewing machine. I've sewed the 2 rows together, and I'll show you that I pressed all of the seams in this row in one direction, and you can see how the kind of trimmed edges just kind of all go down, and your result is that your row is fairly flat. So, and I did the same thing with this row. They're going in the opposite direction. So now when I go to sew these 2 rows together, I will put them right sides together, and these seams will actually nest. I'm actually going to put some pins in just to make sure that my seams are nested all the way down. Okay, so I can just kind of feel that those seams are right up next to each other at every intersection. And so now I'm going to go and again just sew 1/4 inch seam, and I will then press and come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, back from the sewing machine again. I've joined these 2 rows together. I love how the seams all line up really well. That's because of all that pinning. And I did press that seam open just to make it extra flat and easy to be flat. So what I'll do is I'll continue adding rows until I get the size runner I want. One other thing I want to show you is that when you're done, you won't have any trimming that you need to do on the 2 short ends, but you will want to trim these sides before you add your quilt and bind. And so what I do is I just take a long ruler and I put the edge of my ruler right on the most narrow point. And I'm going to line that up all the way down so that the edge of my ruler is always on the most narrow point. And then I will trim these little extra parts off. You can see that some of the tumblers on the end are, they're not a full tumbler because you've trimmed before you've quilted and bound. But that's really all there is to it. These tumbler projects are a lot of fun, and I hope that you'll enjoy making one of these different sizes. As I said earlier, I will link everything that I showed you here, and I hope you'll enjoy sewing with tumblers. Okay, I hope you enjoyed our little discussion about tumblers today. They really do go together much more quickly and easily than they look. It's not a difficult thing to sew, and I will be sure to link all of the projects and rulers and templates that I mentioned today so that you can find those if you'd like. If you enjoyed the video, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to the channel, share it with a friend, hit the like button, and also you can hit the bell if you want some notifications about future videos. Thanks so much for stopping by.